James gripped the steering wheel. The highway stretched before him, a black ribbon under a bruised sky. Clouds hid the moon. The only sound was the hum of his engine. He was alone. He had been driving for hours. The miles ticked by slowly. Each one felt heavier than the last. The silence inside the car was starting to press in on him. It was the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. He turned up the radio, hoping for some company. Static. He switched to another station. Static again. It seemed like every frequency was dead. He sighed and switched the radio off. The silence returned, deeper than before. James shivered, pulling his jacket tighter around himself. A faint sound reached him, a whistling. It was high-pitched, almost like a bird. But there were no birds out here, not at this hour. He glanced at the empty passenger seat, then back at the road. The whistling continued. It seemed to be coming from just outside the car. It was close, too close. He rolled down the window at a crack, listening. The wind whipped in, cold and sharp. The whistling was louder now, clearer. It was a simple tune, almost childish. But there was something unsettling about it, something about the way it seemed to hang in the air, following him. He rolled up the window, his heart starting to race. He tried to ignore the whistling, to focus on the road, but the sound was relentless. It seemed to seep into his bones, burrowing under his skin. The whistling stopped. James held his breath, listening. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a new sound came. A whisper, low, raspy, right in his ear. "Turn around," it hissed. James gasped, slamming on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt. He whipped his head around, searching the back seat. Empty. He was alone. He could feel his pulse pounding in his ears. "Turn around!" The voice came again, closer this time. It was no longer a whisper. It was a command. Panic seized him. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling. No signal. He was trapped. The voice spoke again, a cold, sharp whisper. "Turn around, now!" James slammed the car into reverse, his foot heavy on the gas. He didn't know what was behind him, but he couldn't stay here. He had to get away. He threw the car into a U-turn, tires screeching, and slammed on the brakes again. Standing in the middle of the road was a figure, tall, thin, shrouded in shadow. It was difficult to make out any features, but one thing was clear. It had no face. Where a face should have been, there was only darkness, and it was whistling. The faceless figure took a step towards the car. The whistling grew louder, sharper, a piercing shriek that seemed to claw at the edges of James's mind. James didn't hesitate. He slammed his foot down on the gas, the engine roaring in protest. The car lurched forward, speeding away from the faceless figure and its haunting melody.